Good evening, everyone. Hi, guys. A very warm welcome to today's live event with a very special guest here. I think when I think of Somya Bajaj today, I think she doesn't need any introduction for the people out there, honestly speaking. An epitome of the quote that I would say, keep on asking and you shall receive. You seek and you shall find. And if you knock, you shall open the door. She has been doing that consistently in her life, finding the right dimension to fit in, and I think it's not something everybody gets to do. I have here with me Ms. Somya Bajaj from Princeton, joining us from Princeton University with a 333 GRE score and whatnot. So today we are here to have a candid conversation with her, trying to understand every experience she's had and solve all of your queries with respect to GRE and admissions in this live event. And I'm pretty sure most of you have very serious and burning questions. Keep posting them as comments while I take it and give it to our guest today, right? So, Somya, thank you first of all. I think given your very short span of vacation, you've come here. How's life at Princeton?
It is like a dream. First, thank you so much for having me here. I feel this adds the extra excitement to my vacation, something that I had not expected. And it has been incredible to be here today, and it is the weather has been a God's grace, not humid at all, and much cooler. And similarly, like the weather in Chennai has been so unexpected, life at Princeton has exceeded my expectations in all regards. In terms of the people that I have met, in terms of the perspective that I have gained, and honestly the sort of life I've been able to even afford. Getting the kind of scholarship from Princeton along with the stipend has given me a lot of calmness in a way that sort of goes away if you have to go in for masters with a debt. You're not able to take in as much of that place because you're constantly calculating and trying to find the worth of every penny rather than absorbing as much as the place has to offer you. And in all of that, along with added inspiration every second in every classroom, every professor leaves you with an extended part of yourself which you did not know existed. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my university and my friends for having given me the kind of perspective in 1 year, and I can't wait for what the next year has to stir in my world.
I think that's kind of a very inspiring note. I think we have an incredible journey to be shared here. This is just getting started. And for the audience who are just joining us, we have Somya Bajaj is giving you a recap. She's joining us as a student from Princeton University. It's not an opportunity that you get very often. So first of all, I want to ask you, Somya, now, when did this all start? When did you first talking about masters, and when did you think about going for a public policy?
I'd actually started off thinking about CPT. When I first finished school, I wanted to do CPT and the normal CA because I had taken commerce, but I could hardly crack my CPT exam. And the next option I had, I knew I loved economics. So I was like, why not try for economics honors? I went to Christ University to pursue my economics honors, and 1 year into the program I loved it so much I thought, now I'll do a master's in economics. But then the life in Bangalore and the exposure that Christ University gave me really opened my eyes to doors that I did not know were there. For instance, when I used to go back home from my university, I used to interact with a lot of children and from underprivileged households. That exposed me to start volunteering with an organization called Make a Difference and teaching children at shelter homes. That was my first sort of exposure to social service. And I loved it so much that I started grabbing every opportunity that I got after that. So for instance, for my thesis, I went to Singur in West Bengal to understand the plight of farmers and the plight of rural India. To extend that, even though I got an offer to join Goldman Sachs, that did not speak to my soul as much as it did to go to Delhi and join a political consultancy and work at scale with governments and to assist state governments, work with the bureaucrats to create and try to understand the field of public policy. And having done that, I knew that no matter what, even today I hear from people that why you are entering politics, it is a dirty game, it is full with corruption, only corrupt people go. And then I think to myself that we are in a democracy and you elect the people. So if you're saying that the government is problematic, it is your choice. And if we choose to stay out of government, we are extending that. And all of this together has been my sort of direction towards public policy, very targeted.
I think, like you said, the stars just align you to take this as your primary field. And I think at the end of the day, we do need some good politicians out there. So we're very excited for your career as much as everybody out there. So moving forward, so public policy is something you've chosen. And once you realize public policy is your cup of tea, what were the next set of actions that you took? What made you choose a US as a destination, and how did you apply?
So I would actually start with a failure first, because when I first worked in the public policy consultancy for a year, I thought I should go for masters then. But when I wrote down my SOP and I took my GRE, which was not satisfactory, which was not a first time satisfactory score, I realized that I really was not ready. I read my SOP and I went through so many blogs online which spoke about successful applications, and I did not really have anything new to offer the school, which prompted me to stay back for a year, which I feel, at least in my case, was a difficult decision, because we are not trained to take gap years. We are trained to do one thing after another, and it's seen as a failure by the society to take a gap year. But it has done me so much good, because thankfully I was able to prepare much better. I did not come across GRE Edge as a service in my first go, and the targeted approach really helped me get my target score. And the 1 year additional exposure of working in a tribal area and understanding the worldview more and making your own perspectives, views stronger was very key before I went in. So I did that, and then I started my applications very early. So I started writing my SOP in August 2016 because I was going to go into school in 2017 and applications were due in December 2016. So I started writing in August because 15th August LSE applications opened, and that gave me the prompt to start early, because LSE and all UK universities are rolling applications, and I used to send it to a lot of people, both people I knew and didn't know, to review my SOPs. And you can't, because all of these people are doing it for your good, so you can't really follow up with them to send it to you in 2-3 days. So I would send it to them and they would get back. The last draft I submitted was the 24th draft, and I can't be more thankful to each and every one of them who helped review my SOPs, and even my professors for the LORs. So starting early was definitely key, GRE was definitely key, and the third thing was adding the unique edge to your application with all the experience that you can gather.
Wow, that's actually a very clearly put timeline that you've followed so far. Now, I think I've tried to digest this fact for a lot of times now. Just take us through the admits you've got after all this struggle. I just want you to name those universities that you've got admits.
Even today, when I name those universities, it feels like I'm naming them to make my application list and not my acceptance list, because I can't absorb that it is true. But the first one was Harvard. It came out on the 8th, and it was the first.
Wow.
Second was Princeton, Columbia, Oxford, LSE, and I remember the fourth one. Oh yeah, no, it was this. Yeah, because I remember I applied. Thanks for this, by the way. So there's a great reminder and a shock absorber almost.
Wow. So 5 most prestigious universities in USA and UK, for that matter of fact. I think that's a dream come true for you. I'm very sure that most of you out there right now in our Facebook page watching us live throughout India. I have with me a very, very special guest. In fact, to an extent where we kind of take a lot of inspiration for what we do at GRH because of Somya Bajaj. A fellow GRH alumnus who scored a whooping 333 in her GRE and went on to get an admit from one of the most prestigious universities, is here with us. And you have an opportunity to ask questions by your post. Please go ahead, start commenting and ask us questions right away, or if you have any questions, hit on like button and keep us posted. Now, in this scan interview, my next question for you, Somya, is you've spoken about the fact that you want to start with a failure because you're the kind of person who takes a lot of lessons from everything you do. So the first time you gave your GRE, you scored a 312. and you didn't give up there. What was the story there, and how did you make this score boost from a 312 to 333 possible?
I don't know. I would definitely like to thank the teachers here who worked so hard with me and in such a targeted manner. Because in the first time, the thing is I'm also very exam phobic, so I get very scared while writing any exam, which obviously can't be the reason for you to not go for masters. And that is what kept going wrong in the first couple of times. And the second thing is that I would always prepare, but I never really looked into the mistakes that I was making. So there were consistent chapters where internally I knew that I'm weak, but I went into the exam without having rectified it and strengthened it. Because these are also really easy topics, right? So you also don't want to tell yourself that I don't know it. And that impedes you from really giving that extra effort into the test. I remember with my GRE Edge SFA, who is the teacher who sort of guides you through the entire thing. In my first call, she always used to catch up with me and ask me how much time will I realistically be able to give. So there were weeks where I could give 1 hour because I was parallelly working, and there were weeks where I could give only half an hour. And the entire study plan would revolve around those availabilities. And I think that targeted approach is really key. And second, she helped me not move on to the next problem without having mastered my previous one, which also helped me realize that the only mistake I kept making were silly mistakes. Every time I would copy, either I would copy the question wrong or I would write down the answer wrong. Because I actually had the solving correctly, but in this whole transfer business, the 0 would get missed out or the decimal would get missed out, and A would become Z suddenly, articles would change in verbal, and these were things that I was just not working on. And they were such simple errors to fix, and I wish I could meet my SFAs in person and tell them how they have been a reality check and a mirror in front of me at every point, literally haunting me all the time, which I really needed to pull up my socks and actually get this score.
Wow. I think it takes a lot of heart from a 333 scorer to say that out loud. Honestly, at any point of time, GRE is kind of a difficult exam. And by the way, she's not coming from a quant background, guys. She has a 168 in her quant and very persistent about that score. So I have a question today from Juili, if I'm not wrong. Hello, I would ask you about AWA in particular. Mm-hmm. How did you prepare and what was your score?
In AWA, I guess it's out of
6.
It's about, in my tests, I would keep getting 4.5 and my SFA said it's fine, but in my GRE, finally I got a 5, I guess. Yeah. And there are very clear pointers I would like to point out. Don't hold it on me. These are just what I feel. So I read once, and even a lot of blogs testify on this, that there are key words that you should always use in your AWA. So for example, there should always be continuation words like moreover, otherwise, therefore, which continues every idea and transition from one into the other. Second, you always get marks for introduction and conclusion. So a great tip I got from one of my friends was to write the introduction first, then write the conclusion, because if these two are not there, you're definitely going to lose points in the AWA. And then write the middle 3 paragraphs, the body. And in each of the 3 paragraphs, give concrete examples and make this entire AWA very structured. And beyond that, I would say essays you can't really practice. If you have time, and my SFA suggested me this, to go through example essays in the guide that you get, because they have, all the topics are pre-disclosed. There is no topic that's going to come from anywhere outside. So it's very helpful to just be familiar with what kind of topics you might get. And because you're going to prepare for a good 60 days, every day just look through 2 topics and in your mind just frame it. So that you're just ready for no matter whatever comes your way. And be aware, otherwise, as long as you follow a basic structure of 5 paragraphs, intro, conclusion, you're very good to go.
Wow, I think Julie has in fact got the message. Wow, that's great. In fact, FI school also again, we're not a very frequent occurrence, guys. I think people preparing for GRE, you might be aware. Now, I can see more and more people catching up with us and trying to understand the context of what's happening. Just to give you a pretext, I am with Somya Bajaj, a student from Princeton University who has joined us doing her master's in public policy. And that might just not do that. That introduction does not do the justice, by the way. She is joining me with a 5 in AWA. She has rejected a bit from Harvard and whatnot, right? So today is your opportunity to interact with her, ask as many questions as you would like, because at the end of the day, helping you get that dream admit, dream score, and making more and more MS stream a reality is the objective here at GREH, and I have with me a living epitome of that. And it also gives us an immense pleasure to get an opportunity to talk to her. Now, catching up on what we have more. Wow, a lot of questions coming in. Okay, I think this kind of goes into the nuances of GRE. Do I have to prepare or remember 3,500 GRE words? I'm pretty sure you remember this question like a lot of times now. And how many did you do? How did you go about it?
I was very bad with it. I was so indisciplined with learning words. But then I tried to gamify the process. So I had to take a metro every day to go to work in Delhi. And it was a 20-minute ride one day. So I would use this 20-minute ride to learn words. And a great way I found to learn these words was to associate it with people around you. Because when you form these heuristics, you're able to remember words better. So when you see, for example, eclectic, and I have Vishnu in front of me, so I'll be like, oh, Vishnu is an eclectic person. There are subtle hints there, but never mind.
Thank you for that.
So associating that, even I know you will also not forget this word now, right?
I would.
So it's very easy to remember words like that. Second, a great tip my SFA gave me was to write down these the difficult words, because there are some blockages in every word list that you will have. Write down those words in areas where you see every day. So in your laptop, make those post-its on the screen, and so you just see those words, and when it comes to you on the screen, you'll be like, oh, what does it mean? Then you'll form associations. So just try to keep remembering it and sort of gamify the process. Then finally, this word really helped. Because it was also fun, like it tests you're swiping. So instead, because we are also used to fidgeting, right? So instead of fidgeting on Facebook and scrolling up, you fidget on the word bot and swipe right.
Yeah.
So that's also quite useful. And you just need to like enjoying these words. To specifically answer that question, all of you who are using the GRE services, the 21 to 30 word lists are the important word lists. And those are the words that are actually recurring. I do not remember doing words beyond that. So I really focused only on those words and kept doing the same lists again and again. After a time, my SFA also gave up and said, fine, only do those lists.
I think it's a two-way journey here, I think, in terms of GRE preparation. And honestly, with Somya, it's been a lot of learnings from that side and a lot of learnings from our side in terms of how to help each and every student. She made our lives easier, honestly speaking. She was able to understand her own mistake. We just have to learn from that. So in terms of address your question, Shruti, I think that kind of clarifies how to go about GRE vocabulary. Now, continuing with the Q&A session, Julie has one more question. Can you tell me how to make the most of this platform that you're talking about? I have just joined it. This is Julie's question.
Just be on it. The rest your SFAs will take care of, and be honest with them, right? Like the thing is, with other tutors, you sort of miss and say, ki, I studied when you really didn't. You solved it when you really didn't. There's no point of doing that because they're also tracking what you're doing. So they have something called a really fancy, I don't understand it, but it works. It's something called a millisecond technology tracking tool.
Millisecond monitoring technology.
That's right. So that no matter when you go on screen, apparently it tracks every little thing that you do. So my SFA was able to see how much time and where I was getting stuck on the RCs. And even in the quant, what I'm going on circling, and if I'm getting confused, I'm choosing a question, then changing it, choosing an answer, and then changing it. So she was able to point out in both quant and verbal, what are the areas that I'm going wrong in. So there was no point point of me lying about my preparation, because they could see it, and they could see it when I was sleeping or when I was at work, and all of that was very useful. I remember once I had opened the GRE web page on my computer during work hours, and my SFA that evening congratulated me for having prepared extra in my off time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, when she did not expect it. So just be honest with them, and let them offer you what they have. Because I have also been here in the office today, and it's incredible to see the SFAs live, where they are like, okay, how much time can you really give? And be honest with that answer, and they'll be able to work backwards from there.
Wow, I think that kind of defines what we do better than anything else. Coming from a student perspective, we also understand the definition of what we offer, and I think we'd like to thank you for that, Somya.
Oh, thank you.
And that kind of puts us in the whole perspective of what we do in a better manner. Thank you. But moving forward from here on forth, again, I do understand more of you have just joined us and had questions like, hey, this is what's happening here. Giving you again, this is I don't think she needs an introduction, but just putting it in context. A student from Princeton has joined us live here, joining us in our office in Chennai, talking to us about sharing her experience on how it's been an incredible journey. For the past 3 years, I think side by side we have gone through a lot of strides, a lot of way forward in our lives. I think we can openly say that. And today she's going to come forward and tell us about how life at Princeton, what masters is about. Now, when you talk about your class profile, like honestly, most of them out there, they have the dream of going abroad. They want to do that thing. But what is the most biggest learning that you believe when you go for a master's beyond academics? What is that you see?
Oh, there is so much. It has taught me a lot beyond life itself, because like for instance, I would wonder what are the challenges, because I'm in the social service space, but I'm sure it's applicable for all other fields as well. You go in with your own perspective, because there's only so much that you see in India, and that sort of India is moving towards. But the world is doing a lot more, and people from other countries come with very different perspectives. So for example, for us it might be to be the fastest and overtake China and overtake the United States in economic aspects, technology progress. But for other countries, for example, people coming from Mexican countries, or some come from very touristy countries where tourism is a bigger factor, and there the focus is more on, oh, how do I the increasing tourism is actually messing up with my environment, and controlling that is what I want to focus my technology towards. Different languages give you a lot of perspective, because when people talk around you in Spanish, in sometimes they talk to you in Portuguese, that opens up perspectives of different countries' news also to you, where you start perceiving things differently and become more sensitive to a lot of aspects. And that has been very enriching. Second, just the campus and the opportunities that it offers. So I had the greatest fortune of living very close to Einstein's house, and that was such a big thing for me, where I felt like just being in the campus was so inspiring in every way. Third, the sort of exposure. So I was able to go to different universities, different conferences, and have a stage to voice my views, and a hearing board to also listen it, sort of test it out, and test out your ideas, get allies in what you want to do. And these different perspectives that people bring in is incredible. But I don't want to underestimate the stress and the hard work that you have to put in. It's not about just getting there. It's also about asking yourself whether you are ready for the competition after. Because once you go into the university, you are now competing at a global scale. So don't just go in for masters for going in for masters. Have a very clear, it's important to have a clear idea of what after. Otherwise, with those 2 or 3 years lost, the life after can feel very, very stressful.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that you're now going to the different league of competition in terms of anything that you do.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to the one of the best among each countries. And a university like Princeton definitely puts you in a challenging space.
Yeah.
I think that's something everybody also realizes, and you know you are the one who can get it done, right? So more questions coming in, and guys, if you have any more questions, any more suggestions, just hit the like button or the heart button. Drop your comment. I'm definitely going to take it up one by one and start answering that in detail. Because if not today, then when, right? It's a very special occasion here. And Robin Matthew, thank you for joining us. He has a question for you, Somya. What internships did you do before you went abroad for your masters?
Well, internship was, I did 2 internships and the others were all work experiences because it was also a program requirement. Plus that's something that I wanted to do to also be sure that this is a field I want to devote myself into. So I interned at a firm in Calcutta. It's called RP Sanjeev Goenka firm. It's a conglomerate. It's an Indian conglomerate. Second, I interned with Goldman Sachs in Bangalore, and then I worked. I was leading an NGO with a friend in Bangalore while I was doing my undergrad. So that added a lot of weight into my application. Then just before going, a couple of friends and I, we started this organization to train the youth into politics, which is called Citizens for Public Leadership. So we did that. Then were my 2 main work experiences. One was a political consultancy, and then I was working with the government of Odisha and Tata Steel on a project. That was one. So I did that. So that was in total like 3 years of work experience before I went. But it's like all in all, it's important to showcase different skills, mainly leadership and problem solving to the university, in addition to what is the unique perspective that your presence will bring into the class.
All right. Now, I think that kind of answers your question, Robin Matthews. Just to keep it in context, in her 3rd and 4th year, she was doing internships in parallel and kind of more relevant to the profile. That kind of adds a lot of advantage. So I hope that answers your question, Robin. Now, a couple of pointers coming from Saman and Patel. They want to understand what kind of materials did you follow primarily for your quant score of 168?
Oh, I actually just followed what I got from my SFAs. What they do is they give you questions continuously every time you practice along with your study plan, and I would just do that. In fact, the days I finished it early, I would give myself break days and not be like I'm going to do extra. I would just follow my study plan and keep it very chill to also try and not freak out about this whole experience. And second, I used, and I would really encourage you to thoroughly go through and understand concepts in the official guide that you get from, I think, GRE official, right?
ETS.
Yeah, ETS, yeah. So that official guide is very, very important. And the 2 mock tests, I would say do one halfway into your preparation and do one just before taking the exam. And because these 2, they are very close to the real exam, and they'll give you a very fair idea of how much you can expect in the test. In addition, otherwise there's a lot of material by which my friends and even my SFA suggested I get. You can get by Kaplan. There's a lot of online material. There's no end to how much you can practice. But before going to the next question, master the previous one.
All right, I think that kind of puts that one last pointer I would like to stress. If you get it wrong, just don't go to the next question till you go. If you get it right, understand why you got it right. This kind of puts the entire concept in perspective, which will make a very, very big difference, at least in quant. Now that we have spoken enough about quant, quite as I expected, a lot of questions on verbal. But before I have a personal question for Somya, when it comes to the admits that you've gotten, right? Again, I want to read out very clearly. It's Harvard, and I think she's got admit in Princeton. She's got an admit in Columbia. She got admit in the University of Oxford and London School of Economics. Now, why did you choose Princeton as your goal?
For various reasons. One was definitely what I was looking for personally is a very strong quantitative and academic rigor in the course, because I feel these these two things were sort of missing in my previous education. I really loved economics, and I saw the economic modeling and I read these papers, but I never really got the core of quant in it. And I felt one thing I realized is when humans make predictions and whenever we try to evaluate something, there's a lot of bias involved. But when numbers speak, then they are very, very unbiased. And when we are creating policies for a country that is so huge and has so much diversity, you can't let your biases ruin it, right? And which is why I really wanted to strengthen. People may agree, disagree with me because of belief in mathematics and numbers, but I really believe that that's a language I wanted to understand and master. And Princeton's entire program focused on it. Plus, it allowed me a specialization in economics and public policy. Third, there are, in our second year, we're allowed to work parallelly with different organizations and have policy workshops which strengthen and prepare us for the real world. So all and last and my most favorite is the regular commitment to social service. We are regularly reminded that we're not at the university to just take up any job after. We are there to learn so that we can leave the world as a better place. And the alumni, the professors, the administration, and also your peers really add a very different dimension to your perspective and strengthen your passion towards public service. And I did not see any other, see all of these elements together in any other school.
Wow, I think that kind of, she has not only done her research to choose the universities before admit, after admit she has done a long test to understand what the program has to offer and picked Princeton as the right choice for your master. I think it's definitely working for you, I must say.
I actually want to just pause here and add one more point, that in your SOPs as well, be sure to clearly state why you are choosing the university. Don't copy paste it from your other essays saying that it's one of the best. They know they are one of the best. They want to know why you think they are one of the best, right? And so I wrote exactly which professors, which courses I wanted to take, and that is very, very key in your application as well.
Alright, that's a very important pointer that all of you should keep in note, guys. Your SOP does play an important role. In fact, I want to cover more on that topic, I guess, because most of you might have these questions for me. So coming back to, again, a lot more audience, a lot more guys adding up, a lot more questions. Let me give you a context of what's happening. I have with me Somya Bajaj, a student from Princeton University, joining us as a guest today to talk about her incredible journey. More than that, it's to give you an experience of what to talk about masters and admission in general, right? So a question from Sanchita Sonar. She wants to know, how do you prepare for verbal? Her verbal score is 165. Now, if you had to give a guide, proven guide on how to study for verbal, Rucha and Sanchita, both of them have this question for you.
Verbal, I guess, practice is the only way you can do it. And also there are, because practice will help you master certain tricks that might be useful in verbal, which is to find keywords. In verbal, I've learned that it's not about finding the right answer, it's about eliminating the wrong answers. So when you see the questions, there will always be a keyword in that question, and you can find the same keyword in the passages itself. So it's tricky, and don't try to find logic behind it, but it works, is that the answer is going to be 2-3 lines above and below the keyword always. So location matching works very, very well in this. Second, the first time, always practice also because it improves your reading speed. So always glance through and don't stop reading if it's not an interesting topic. So for me, very few topics aside from social science and history and politics would be interesting. Most of the times I got science topics where I would read 2 lines and be like, oh my god, I don't understand this. And I would stop there. It would reduce my speed of reading. Don't do that. Just skim through the first time so that you roughly know what words are where, and then go to the questions and then use the questions to then thoroughly read. But always read the first paragraph extremely well and the first 2 lines of every paragraph extremely well. because they will always and always have the essence of the entire paragraph.
Wow. Sanchita, Rucha, I think that kind of will give you a good start. Just approach CRC again the way she has told you. Believe me, it will really help you.
Yeah.
Because this is not something she has just learned now. It's been 2 years and it's still golden in her head. I think that's the kind of approach you will get.
And I've learned it from failure. I did not do it the first 2 times and I did not do well, and I could do it the 3rd time because of practice, and it really worked.
Alright, now I think we have more questions coming. Guys, in the meantime, anything question to the GRE admissions, just comment in the chat box. We'll be very happy to address. Now, one question that kind of stood out of the order is, what is that so special that we need to get an admit like the ones you've got so far?
Nothing. You don't. I am really not special. I really try to calm. If there was a drug I could give Vishnu to not let him hyperbole everything that he says about me, I would give it to him. Unfortunately, I have not mixed it in this drink also. And because what I've done is extremely normal. Fortunately, the only thing I would say is I've been very, very lucky to get a very supportive family, to have the right mentors who've guided me to the next step. But those are things that you have to seek, and you will find people to guide you through all of that. Just be very introspective in your application process, right? Like, for example, a lot of us have stories of being forced into a particular career and then quitting it and then going for our calling. Even these are aspects we don't really bring out in our application. Say exactly, be very honest in your entire process, and sort of explore what you really want to, right? Like if you want to do a master's, if you want to do an MBA, be very, show it in your journey why you are the right material for an MBA. Because more than getting accepted, I now very strongly believe, because I hear from the administration of these universities, more than you looking for the right universities, the universities are looking for you. They want to invest in students that are worth it, that are worth their investment. They give in a lot of time, and just bring out your best. Go find the right mentorship. Find the right people to get you the opportunities. Explore your passion to the fullest. And to yourself, if you're able to convince yourself that it is the right time to go for masters, it is the right time to go for masters, and you will be able to put it out on paper. Start writing your SOP in August, and by the time you reach your 24th, 25th, it's going to be the right accepted one.
Somya, fun fact guys, she had 24 drafts of SOP. I'm not kidding. She wrote an SOP 24 times, and she was actually a little convinced in the 24th time that she might get an admit.
No. I was not convinced.
Oh, she was not convinced.
I was just sure that from my end I've done everything. Even when the admits came, I was like, I don't know, this is an error. Even after going to the university, I asked, are you sure you wanted me?
Alright, so that kind of puts things in context. At the end of the day, it's not about being special, it's about taking the right steps needed. Right from the achiever herself, she's told, it's just about taking the right steps towards finding yourself and keep exploring the options that you have. Right, now more and more questions coming, by the way. Guys, if you have any of your friends who has questions for Somya, if you believe they'll benefit, just tag their names and ask them to raise the right questions as well. Now the question here is, if I have to take admission in Jan, as in meeting my Jan deadlines, Sindhuja's question, when should I take my GRE? I'm assuming the question is fall 19, when should I take the right GRE?
It actually sort of depends on when your scores are due. For many universities, the scores are due after the application. For many, the deadline is before. So I would say don't worry about that as much. I would, as soon as you get 45 to 50 days in your hand and you know you can dedicate at least 3 hours a day to your preparation, start preparing. And don't worry about the dates too much, because don't make the mistake I made. I first booked my date and then I prepared. But prepare and then book your date. And find a window and then take your exam. And you should just, you will get your score immediately. And after that, it's going to take a week for your score to reach the university. So up till a week before your deadline, you can take it. But if people freak out about tests like this, like me, I gave myself time to take it the second time in case I did not do well.
Which in fact turned out to be a good choice for you.
Oh, yeah.
I think that kind of definitely put it in perspective of how you can do.
2019, we're in 2018 now.
Yeah.
And I think you should immediately start finding time for yourself to start studying. And in whatever way, in a very systematic, committed manner, with a view in mind that you are taking it in 2 months, and then book your dates.
Alright. Now, funny Sai Kamal's question, what's your GPA in UG?
I don't remember. It was...
What's your GPA in Princeton?
Controversial questions. These are not allowed unless I'm applying for PhD. Princeton very carefully clearly says grades don't matter, and I live by it. They believe in excellence and not grades.
Exactly. Definitely GPA is not a defining.
Chase excellence, success khud aayegi.
Yeah, exactly. It's about
Or going back to undergrad, which are more pleasant grades. It was out of 4, I guess it was a 3 point. It was somewhere, I think 3.6 or 3, around 3.6 out of 4.
Alright, so I hope that answers your question, Sai Kamal, and that's where we stop.
And here I would like to point out, so in my second year, I did not do well in 2 subjects, which pulled my GPA down a little bit. And I made it a point to mention that in my, to request my professor to mention it in the LOR, so that it justifies of sorts why I did not do well. And also point out that in my 3rd year, I was able to buckle up and pull up my grades, so that it speaks to your hard work and your ability to be able to fill some gap that you have. So be able to justify it. You can make mistakes. Anything can happen in any year. You can have a breakdown, and the universities accept that. So if there's a mistake or something, try some part of your application to address it.
All right. So I hope that answers your question, Funny, and in fact, I think a lot of questions coming in. One important aspect I want to ensure I cover in this webinar is the statement of purpose. I think I've visited the topic once in a while throughout our discussion. And guys in the audience, if you're just joining us, like Shiva, Arun, Funny, Vicky, Ravi Priya, very, very, very warm welcome. Like I said, we're talking to a very special guest here at GREH. One of the most inspiring stories that I kind of take for myself as well. Somya Bajaj is joining us as a Princeton student now, previously GRE alumnus, and a 333 with her GRE and a fantastic profile. She's here to talk to us about her tips for you guys to ensure you also get your MS in US stream a reality. Now you can just start posting your question as comments. We'll take up a lot of questions in the meantime, and tag your friends if you have anyone who's looking for masters as well. Believe me, if this story doesn't inspire them, well, it's up for debate, right? Now, question here for you is a statement of purpose. Now, you've constantly talked about this a lot of times. It kind of puts your entire application process in perspective. Now, speaking from your number angle, like your GPA cannot really define your entire persona. There's always going to be a bias involved in these kind of angles, and that's why I believe SOP is a crucial process, right? What would you say that if you had to give these master's aspirants a 5-point tip or a 3-point tip, what would an SOP be like that?
1, be real. The thing is, we are not used to, it's seen as very boastful and arrogant to talk about your successes, right? So we are not trained to do that on a daily basis. So when you start writing your SOP for the first time, it's actually the first time you're writing about yourself. And trying to sell yourself. So be very sort of unapologetic and write down what you really think defines you, both in failures as well as in successes. And that is 1. Second, add concrete examples and learnings. Don't say everybody should be a leader, or don't say I am a leader, or don't say this experience was fantastic. Say why that experience was fantastic. What aspect of it made you a leader? Or don't say this would add a lot of value to my future career. Say in what way it would add value. Be very, very, very specific. Third mistake that we make is that we are often, we start writing in passive voice. Always write your SOP in active voice. That completely changes the tone of the entire sentence. and automatically in the end be very concise, right? Like nobody has like these long complicated sentences after a point don't make sense. So before you send it to anybody or proofread it yourself, give it a day, because you've gone through it so many times, you feel everything is important and everything makes sense, but not everybody cares about you the way you do. So see yourself from a third person perspective, and so write it at night, only next morning look at it, and then cut down. Don't write sentences which are a whole paragraph. They have to end with a full stop. And I think these more or less will always push you to the right direction.
Wow, I think that kind of gives you a context on how I think the active passive definitely puts. It's actually a change of your own mentality when you go for passive to active. You can actually try it as an example when you are free. It will give you understanding of what the tip means. It's very difficult to define that conceptually, but I think like I have Somya Bajaj here. I mean, who else could? Now, moving forward, a lot of guys are asking a mix of verbal and quant tips. I think we have covered a lot of them, but I am going to cover it one last time. But is it going to be verbal? Is it going to be quant? Can you just hit the respective smiley below? If you want to talk about verbal, just hit a heart smiley so that Somya will take it as a cue for you to talk about that. If you want to talk about quant, you can just click on the haha emoticon so that we understand what kind of expectation you have for us to, because I see a mix of comments coming in, and we've in fact covered a verbal a lot of times. So let us know what kind of expectations you have. Only a couple of hearts coming in, guys. Is there anything? Oh wow. I think verbal kind of swoops in and takes the journey. Okay, now let's break down verbal to simplify, because a very open-ended question. Now, when it comes to verbal, I think the most difficult area is RC. I think we've covered it explicitly. When it comes to text completion and sentence equivalence, what do you think is the expectation from the ETS organization, and how do you prepare for that? How is it relevant to your masters on the GRE verbal section?
Relevant to your masters, controversial. Relevant to getting into your masters, very very relevant. You're not getting in without that.
Okay.
Because they're also a big chunk of the questions. You actually have lesser weight in RCs than in SCs and sentence equivalence, I feel. And the only way to crack it is your word bot. This is where in SCs is where your vocabulary really matters, because when you, and my tip, this has been very helpful to me, whenever you get a sentence equivalence or text completion, read the options first, of the word options first, and then you'll mentally know. So if it is the 2-word blank, and I remember this, I don't know why I remember this, but if you have a 2-word blank, there will only be some synonyms in your options. So if there are only 2 synonyms, you automatically know they are the answers, because that's what's going to happen. Second, to check it, go back to the sentence and see if there is a connecting word or a contradicting word in the sentence, right? Nevertheless, and all that will say that there are going to be 2 contradictory words, right? And therefore, in the options, you'll only have 2 options, and you'll always be tossing between 2, and only your vocabulary can help you at that time. So keep an eye for keywords. Start with options, go back to the sentence and verify it, and always put it in, read it out, and then move on to the next one.
I think again, very clearly defined, understanding the context and understanding these important words like however, nevertheless, tells you what the answer is going to be. So Mamta, Princey, Pratyusha, Arun Kumar, I hope that solves your sentence sequence and text completion woes. I think just pick up on your vocabulary as fast as you can, and I think once you understand the context of the question, well, you have a result here, a 165 scorer. Now moving ahead to the next part, which is reading comprehension. Now this is something, again, I think we have discussed this for the past 3 years. I think me and Somya would have exchanged and probably write a guide on reading comprehension right now, honestly speaking. But nevertheless, it's one of the things that you cannot just take it. You have to start from the basics. As a beginner's guide, if I were to dumb it down to the most least difficulty level, how does one approach a reading comprehension question?
Okay. Reading comprehension, one, start by familiarizing with reading. because it's a very different kind of a text setting. And when you start reading more and more, you'll realize there is a very concrete pattern to these texts. Like I said, I'll reiterate this, that your first paragraph will always have the essence of the entire passage that you're dealing with. So there will, strangely enough, the reading comprehension's first question is, what is the essence of this passage? Or what does this passage really stand for? The answer to this question is always in the first paragraph. So you have answered one question there. Second question, and you always remember you can go forward and go back in RCs. So if you do not understand one question, don't worry, move ahead. So as you answer the other questions, the one you don't know will come back. So the key is to keep moving on and not getting stuck in things that you don't understand. And again, in the pattern of how to read the first paragraph well, read the first line of every other paragraph very well, and then go to the questions, and you'll be able to seamlessly answer all of them.
Alright, so I hope that answers your question. Wow. Okay, this was a very interesting question I was keeping for a later time, but Deepanita Biswas, what was your strategy for getting such a massive scholarship? Were you preparing to get it from early stage, or was it latter part of the application process?
No, I was preparing for it from before I started applying for anything else.
Just to give you context, Somya has about, I think you can also tell them how much scholarships you have at this point of time.
So I have a full scholarship from Princeton, and I also get a stipend. So that is extremely fortunate. And before I was applying, I was very so personally. This answer might be different for different people, but I want to get into public service, so definitely I did not want to go into a policy school or a grad school with debt, because after coming back I don't know what kind of a salary I'm going to make, so I don't want to get into that, and I knew that I'm only going to go if I get a scholarship. So that for me was primary. Throughout my journey, parallelly, I was furiously speaking to people, looking online, even on Government of India websites, and I realized how many scholarships they have, and made a list of all of them along with their deadlines, along with the requirements, and had a clear sort of day-to-day plan of how am I going to work towards each of them, because a scholarship for me was more important than an admit, because I would have to reject an admit if I did not get a scholarship anyway. So I worked very, very hard towards that. And the thing is with scholarships that they are more competitive, because now you're choosing from between the people who have been admitted. So there's an element of need also that you need to demonstrate there. Need in the sense, why are you the most deserving person? For example, an amount like $150,000, right? Which is a huge amount of money that this college or any institution has to invest in you. So think about it like an investor yourself. Think about it like a venture capitalist. And if somebody has asked you for money for their masters, what is it that you will look for in them to give them that money?
Wow, I think that gives you some kind of approach on how to go forward, Biswas. Now, funny Sai says, should I apply for priority admissions as an early round to increase my chances of scholarship? Does it make a difference?
Yes. It makes a lot of difference, not only in the process but also to your confidence and your preparation in the entire stage. It is, trust me, it is a very, this is probably a chance for you to see how good an entrepreneur you can be about your own self. So your success in masters is your startup, and you have to be successful in it with your work plan. You're the boss, you're the employee, and see how well you do. I think that is very, very important, because it's easy to get lost and say, no, I'll do it tomorrow, but start now. If you know you want to go for masters now, start now, and you'll have a fantastic application ready, all tension free before deadline, and try to meet the priority deadline for sure.
Alright, I hope that answers been fine. Now, a personal question from my side, I think in fact Princey has given a hint of it. Now, we talked about statement of purpose, we talk about GRE score, we talk about internships and all that. This is something we discuss when you're a master's student. You read a lot about that. But one important factor that I'm pretty sure you'll also agree with me is this letter of recommendation. Now, a letter of recommendation kind of adds a lot of credibility to your profile. Now, how crucial was that in your application process, and how did you go about it?
I'm very sure it was very, very crucial. I mean, I can't say why the university in totality accepted me, but I know this for a fact that, so an SOP always has a word limit and you can't put everything there. So if they ask, and all these questions are similar, but they have a very interesting twist, which these universities, I'm sure, talk amongst themselves and decide. Because if you've copy-pasted, you'll know that you've copy-pasted from which university to the other.
Wow.
These guys are stellar in reviewing applications and they know it. So don't try to copy-paste your essays. But you can't write everything in your LOR. So there are aspects which you want to reiterate. So your in your SOP, sorry. So your LOR will complement your SOP. So always try to ensure that none of your LORs are repeating material or overlapping material. So for instance, if you want to talk about leadership qualities in you, then you've already given one example in your SOP about it. Ask your LOR to testify that that is actually what happened, and try to get different perspectives. So for me, I was working with the government. So the government here is my client. Now I asked the government official to testify about my client management skills, about my stakeholder management skills. So that gave a more detailed aspect of leadership than an overarching saying that she's a very good leader. Because if you're that, then you're obviously the rest, right? And it gives the university a stronger idea. Then I used, then one of my other LORs was given by my project manager, who was able to say how I'm able to follow instructions, take lead, manage teams, and all those aspects. And then my academic LOR, that did not talk about any of these. I could have asked my, because my university professor was also my department head. So when I became the editor of my college magazine, he was the person I would report to. So instead of again writing about leadership and team management and initiative, he more focused on my academic setting and the continuation and the consistency of my grades and being able to write assignments on time, asking the right questions in class, bringing a new perspective to class. These are important aspects that even the university will want from you. So if the professor can testify it, there's nothing like that. So try all of them to sort of complement your SOP and your resume, and holistically they should tell a single story. So when I read all these applications, and everybody reads all the documents, so when I see it all, I will paint a picture of the person, and the person should be same as the person who's going to enter the university. They should not be two different people. So when you read all your documents, you should look like yourself.
I think that kind of is very important, because at the end, like she said, the university chooses you and you don't choose the university. It's about getting that right culture set in from the very beginning, and if that's something that you really appreciate or you really want to be a part of, that makes a difference. So reject should not technically put you down. It's just that you have to make certain differences or in your mindset or the way you think to fit in the culture. That's how it works. Now, moving forward, I think we are back to A1, where I think more questions about AWA. But again, like putting new things in perspective, I have with me a very special guest, Miss Somya Bajaj, a Princeton student, joining us live in our office here at Chennai. I think it kind of takes a lot of pleasure to invite her and talk about this. Since I think I see a repetition of questions, first of all, I would like to thank you a million times for being a part of this and coming forward and sharing your very important tips with us. Do you have any last minute things you want to tell our audience today?
I think all of you can make it. All of you can get your dream university. Because honestly, I've seen my friends and I've seen my own sister prepare for exams like the IIT, the medical entrances, getting a whooping 98, 99 to get into Delhi University colleges, working so hard for law exams, MBA exams in India. I'm not sort of underestimating the esteem of these universities abroad, but honestly, it is, if you can do this and you can bear this academic pressure, you can definitely do that. So you really have it in you to go there. It just takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of risk. So for example, it takes a little bit mindfulness to keep certain funds aside, to save up for GRE preparations, GRE entrances, your applications, and then also discipline yourself to start early. Be ready to bear the brunt of working really hard for a couple of years. When you're working parallelly or you're in your final year of college, it's like living two lives to work on an application process, but it's all going to pay off. I'm honestly telling you, I don't regret the 2 hours sleep days that I had for a very long time, because you really need to enjoy it. It needs to push you, and if you do not work with that drive and that passion, it's very difficult to survive that phase. So that's the, like what I said is, that's the only difficult part. All the doing you can do. All of you that are attending this have all passed 8th standard with flying colors. And if you can pass that, you can pass the GRE. You have a lot of stories to tell. You live in a multicultural society and a complex sort of rhizome-like system like India. And you survive it, you fight that every day. You just need to introspect and spell out the battles that you've fought. Spell out the battles that you've not fought. What has made you? Why have you decided something? Why have you not decided something? Even if it's something like, I did not have any other choice, so I'm doing this. Because why you did not have any other choice has a big story, and say that story. And make everything that you know about yourself very, very evident. Everything else will just fall together. And you will only be able to do so much if you start on time. So don't delay, and all the very best for your applications. And apply. Like don't think that you reject yourself before the college rejects you. Right? Like I did not apply the first time because I rejected myself from applying. And apply only when you feel you are ready to. And you will crack it. And the world needs to know your voice. The world needs to know what Indians think, what we feel, what we stand for, because it's so important. And yeah, good luck.
The world needs to hear you. Wow, I think you have made us very clear, and we're all with you on helping more and more voices come out like this, and probably make their dream into a reality very soon. So on this note, just how I began the show, I would like to say it very clear that ask it and it will be given to you. Seek and you shall find it. Knock and they shall open the door. I have with me the epitome of that, Ms. Somya Bajaj, a student live from Princeton, here with you to share more and more tips and techniques with you. And today we call it a night, as I think we're heading towards our start time. Her flight will be any time right now to go back to her home, which is in Calcutta, and then from there she has a long vacation and she goes to Princeton. Oh, I think she's going to Africa.
My vacation is ending. Vishnu, my vacation is over. Don't make me realize that.
So she's going to Africa from here on to continue an internship in public policy, and I'm very sure that you had get more instances to talk to her. And with that, we come to the end of this show. Thank you so much, Somya.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me your Monday night.
It's Monday night here at GREH, and in fact, we're going to bring her back very soon. Our webinar, just keep us posted. We'll let you know when she's coming back, probably this week again. In that time, we're going to ensure all your questions are answered. And until then, this is Vishnu and Somya signing off. A very good evening and take care, guys.
Thank you.